morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, we can tell that people are maybe catching flights or not, not maybe making it to all the sessions. Yep, or driving home. Yeah, thank you. We're super excited about this session. We are really proud of the work that we've been able to do in the last year in response to a lot of incompletes in our school district. So we're excited to share with you that work. These are 5 students who participated in the credit recovery program. We tried to pick like a group of students who were representative of the different types of students who came to us, which were students who didn't pass anything for whatever reasons, students who maybe didn't pass 1 class or 2 classes, and then we also served a lot of EL students and a lot of SPED students this summer. Then there were some unicorns, like one of the kids here is a talented, who's part of the, he's highly capable, which is, all students are highly capable, but he's classified highly capable, so he wasn't engaged in the online learning, but definitely had the skill set, so we served him as well. Good. And we have since the sound is not great, we have subtitles. Yes. Thank you so much.
My name is Anthony, I'm a junior, and my favorite part about school is lunch.
Hi, my name is Linda, and I'm in lunch grade, and my favorite part of school is AP Spanish and some classes, which is civics, and environmental science, and maybe lunch.
Maybe lunch. My name is Toby, I'm a sophomore, and my favorite class was math.
My name is Dulce, and I'm a sophomore. My favorite part of school is lunch.
My name is Ashley, and I'm a junior at Burlington High School. And my favorite thing about school is probably my Spanish class.
My name is Julia Bautista. I am a sophomore, and my favorite thing about school is probably meeting people and continuing talking to my friends and probably playing games.
I think I had like 2 incomplete classes last week.
First it was laziness, yes. I wanted to change them, but I had no motivation to do them, and I was also babysitting my sisters a lot most of the time. And when I was free, I would just go to sleep because I was very tired.
I'm focusing online and not turning the assignments on what we do, and I just never could make the load.
I ended up with an incomplete because that class was pretty difficult, and I just had a lot going on at that time too.
I have 1 incomplete credit, which was geometry, and the reason why is because I was stressed and I was mostly focused on the other classes, and I couldn't keep track of the math. So
I don't like at homework. That's why I ended up with incompletes.
At the end of the school year, I had about 6 incompletes. I ended up with a couple of incompletes because I had a lot of chores to do, and I was just I procrastinated a lot, and I was not motivated, not in the right environment to learn and study and actually get my work done.
Yeah, so every one of these students, what we found with the incompletes is that the online learning model didn't work for them. So part of our issue was that, can you click to the next slide? Thank you, Carla. Ooh, you're gonna have to go twice this video. We were still in COVID, so we couldn't bring them in for the summer program. So somehow we had to find a different way to do online learning that would work, because we demonstrated through the school year that it didn't work the way we had done it. So in the spring of 2020, when school shut down, right, March 13th, in second semester alone, we ended up with 165, and then we did almost an entire whole year online, and we ended up with 1,729 incompletes. Our student population is 1,100, so that's more than 1 incomplete on average per student. Were you gonna say something else?
Just within, I mean, I just think it's so important to, our students tell us, right? I'm sure that some of these answers, what the students shared, like, are familiar to you, and I just think it's so important when we ask the students, they tell us why they're struggling. And one thing I really took away from COVID and being an educator in this time period is that motivation, I think we think of it as like a character, you know, either asset or deficit, and it's made me think about motivation as more of a mental health issue. Like, I think it was really easy for teachers to say, well, they're not doing it, they're not motivated, they're not signing in, they're not talking on the Zooms, but there's so many reasons why that was going on, right? So.
Can you talk about one of the asterisks, AB or incomplete with the only options?
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Yep. So in the spring, none of us were ready for school to shut down, right? And so as teachers, everyone was like, what do we do? Like, our classes, there weren't Google Classrooms for most of our classrooms yet. So we were trying to figure out how are we going to continue, you know, because at first we thought we'd be back in 3 weeks. So it was like, we're all in a holding pattern. And then 3 weeks turned into a month. And then eventually they made the call and they're like, we're like this forever. So they got an A if they did the things that we emailed to them. They got a B if they did even one thing. And they got an incomplete if they were ghosts from March to June.
So we wound up with a lot of COVID A's and B's. And actually, it's been, if you do any reviewing of transcripts with students, it's been a really great lesson. And like, oh, and in your cumulative GPA, like, wow, look at what those COVID A's and B's did to your GPA. Let's keep it that way.
Right. And so we went back to the A through D, but still because of online learning, we couldn't give F's yet. We're back to A through F now because we're back in school full time.
Yeah.
So this is the process part. So Heather's our gear up person. She's a problem solver. She's big ideas. She's like, I have this great, she's so passionate. I'm sure you can tell. I have this great plan. I need help. And she knew that I was certified in math and science. And we share the love for students. She's like, Sam, I need you. What do you think about this plan? So, yeah, we made a to-do list for each of us.
Yeah. We had to sift through a lot of really nightmare reports, just like ginormous spreadsheets of all the incompletes, all the grades. It was rough, and it was changing all the time, but we did start looking at the incomplete data in the late spring.
Yep.
I started to talk with Bridget Galati from Compass to Campus because we already had that mentorship program. So we talked about expanding and creating an MOU. So that was clutch. That was really important because we had been getting mentors through the university, essentially for free. But we knew we wanted to actually hire to support summer credit recovery, so we did that by having an MOU. So Bridget helped us hire mentors. We trained those mentors. We hired Carla as a program coordinator through the district, actually, because I don't know about y'all, but it's very hard to hire people through the district. Yeah, for all kinds of reasons. I'm learning all the time, but anyway, we were able to hire both the mentors and the mentors through Northwestern and the program coordinator through our district. We set up a summer schedule, and then we communicated with students and families, so got students filling out a form to sign up for the summer credit recovery.
So while Heather was working with all the people and making all the parts work, I was sitting at my computer. We had picked math and science to be, and this was mostly freshmen because at the time the Gear Up grant was really serving that class. And so I said, okay, integrated science A, first semester of that, and first semester of algebra, I will write online curriculum. And what's funny is that we're like, we know online curriculum doesn't work, but I have to do it that way because that's our only option. And so Heather did the part where she was going to get college students to do the teaching in small groups. So I had to write. It was the weirdest and coolest experience as a teacher. I had to write online curriculum to run without me. I was giving this curriculum to college students to be able to use with the high school students. So I think I have a couple of examples on the next few slides.
And quick clarification, that first year, I misspoke. We hadn't hired Carla yet. It was actually just myself and Yaritza, and we ran the credit recovery program Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a couple of breaks in there. But it was, we time-sheeted those hours, and she worked Tuesday, I worked Thursday, and we added Carla the following summer.
So in the second summer of 2021, we expanded with Carla. I included 6 more classes, and so we'll talk about that data as a comparison. But one more slide, Carla, please. Oh,
This is a video.
no. So this is just a screenshot of an algebra lesson that I wrote. So they all kind of follow the same format. First, there's like a mini lesson. Thank you, Khan Academy. We were talking about functions. So, little YouTube video, couple of examples. Anytime, like with my teaching experience, I would say, hey, big hint, the most common thing people do wrong here is switching slope and intercept. Like, any helpful hints based on years of teaching, right? And then practice problems, and then I would embed a hyperlink to show them the answer key, so that they would try it first and then click to check their work. Because I'm not there, right? I wrote this and then I left. Okay, more practice, more answer keys. And then as soon as they felt like they understood the material, they told their mentor, and their mentor shared a Google form link with them for them to take the quiz. I think I have an example of science as well. So science is a little bit trickier because there's so much more content. It's more content than skill, especially in an online setting. So I had them submit Google Slides in Google Classroom for their responses. So they would work with their mentor about, this one's from radiometric dating, and then they type their answers in the box, and then I would review them later.
You did that for every course?
Yeah.
No, yeah, but we only, this first summer, we only added Algebra 1A and Integrated Science. We tried to add English, but it didn't fly. And
No.
honestly, we have the data. Yeah, so we had 20 students engaged, 21 credits recovered, 20 of those credits were Algebra 1A. Because that's just how it worked out.
Yep. So there's also an example from a biology lesson in here, I think, Carla.
And this would have been the second summer?
Yes.
Yes.
So I wanted to show you. So the second summer, I added Algebra 1B, Integrated Science B, Geometry A and B, and Biology A and B. So if we're being upfront, it was a lot of a lot of hours that I got paid through Gear Up to build this curriculum. But now that that investment's done, we're trying to find all the ways to use it, all the possible ways
And
to
I
use
was
it.
able to request additional funds just because of COVID, there were additional funds throughout the grant.
Yep, so all of these are screenshots, but on the next slide and also in your packets, those are, again, those QR codes that hyperlink to the actual Google Docs or slides so you can see the interactive nature. Those are for you. So a biology one, a geometry one, all the math ones were set up to practice, tell your mentor when you were ready for the quiz. And then the science ones all included slides that you would submit at the end. Yeah. Yep, so in Washington State, the credit recovery model, and I used to teach in an alternative learning school, and it was a credit recovery-based, proficiency-based model. So for alternative learning outcomes, proficiency is classified as 80%, and below that is a redo. So and you can only give pass-fail grades, but a pass means 80%. So when students with those passes on their transcript apply to college, they just get a letter from their counselor that says, these P's per Washington State law, and then they can use those P's as 3.0s when they're recalculating their GPA. Does that make sense?
In all honesty, as a Gear Up Site coordinator, I will probably just provide all of our credit recovery students with that letter in advance so that they don't have to go through the process of requesting from their counselor.
So because they had to either pass it with 80% or better, or they had to retake, I had to stay on top of the assessment and the grading so that Carla, leading all of the mentors, knew kids that needed to retake things, kids that were ready to move on. So Google Sheets really helped us to have this grade book that all of us could access, that I was the only one writing in as the certificated teacher, but everyone was monitoring student progress on this online system. Again, the quizzes and the grade sheet, the grade book, are on the third page, I think, in QR codes for your packets.
sorry, are we pulling up the grade point, or the grade book at some point?
We have it.
Okay, I just wanted that grade book, I wish we could see it up here. That grade book is my favorite part of this program, just because it's got the tabs for all the classes. And when we reconvened in the fall and we're able to look at all, am I getting ahead?
No, go.
We're able to look at all the, you can see the units passed are green, and it's just, the visual of it is impressive. You can really see the work that we did and the students did.
And that's the other cool thing about the proficiency-based model. They don't have to, once they've demonstrated mastery, they get to move on. So that took a lot of legwork before we started. We have a really great tech support guy who manages all of our Skyward reports. Skyward is the grading system that Washington uses. I don't know about other states, but I can look at the grades of any student on our campus, but for a specific grade and all of the assignments, I needed Chris. So he gave
full grade books.
Yeah, the full grade books for every math and science class. So I pulled grade books, and if a kid had demonstrated mastery on any of these standards, like they got 80% or 90% on quizzes 1 and 2 in their regular class, and then just dropped off the face of the earth for the rest of the semester, we credited them those learning standards in their summer work, and they just started with standard 3 and finished out the class. And that proficiency model really helped them say, oh, I don't have to redo, mitosis for the 4th time. They got to start where they left off and continue their learning. That just meant that I spent a lot of time going through each grade book and excusing students in the grade book section. But once that was there, it was just a lot of legwork on the front end.
And since student engagement is always a challenge, getting students to show up twice a week during the summer for 7 weeks, I think we had immediate buy-in because students saw, oh, you're going to give me credit for what I already did. Like they felt, I think, so valued, that we weren't going to make them do an entire repeat of the course.
And there were some kids who really only needed, we had kids that had 1 or 2 standards left, but if you miss a test in your math class, you're not passing, right? The unit tests were just so weighty. But within the test, we could say, yeah, but these 4 standards they've hit. It's just these last 2. So anyway, this is you, Heather. Yeah.
Okay, so Sam mentioned our Skyward specialist, Chris Shimke. He really, since our tech department works through the summer, he was so amazing at a really quick turnaround. Like we would have a kid join a couple weeks after the program started, and he would still be able to say, can you pull this grade book for us? Or a student would complete a course and be ready to move on to the next course, and he'd pull the grade book for us. So he even, pulled data for us yesterday. Like, just such an important relationship for this
Needs
program.
a cape. He needs a superhero cape.
We obviously had to work with our counseling department to make sure that when class was back in session, that we had a really streamlined way for them to see who to assign those P grades. And then also to make sure that students were placed in the proper class, right? We definitely had to make sure that nobody was repeating Algebra 1A. That's when we returned back to school. And that's still tough, just with multiple counselors. And we saw, our last session, we saw that the average caseload for counselors in the country is 414 or something to 1. So that's a challenge. We did get better this second year. The first year was harder. We're blessed to have an administrator who's all about kids, and so he was just fully in support. He didn't micromanage us. He trusted Sam as an educator. He trusted me as the site coordinator, and we just kept him updated on the process. I mentioned Western Washington. We really would not have been able to do this with Gear Up staff. There's just no way. And those mentors, what we impressed upon the mentors when we trained them is like, look, we're not expecting you to be an expert. We want you to learn this alongside the student. We want them to recover their credit, but we also want them to have a positive learning experience, just a positive experience pushing through the material. So we had, I think, 6 mentors the first year and maybe 8 the second year. And yeah, hired through the university and trained by us and Carla.
And that was the difference, right? Because they did online school the regular way and it didn't work. They did online school with mentor support and it did work. So clearly the mentors were the magic. They were the key.
And our college student mentors have been doing online learning too, right? They had been struggling. So I think that relationship served them as well.
How many students were assigned to a mentor?
We're going to
Carla?
get into that, yeah, but go ahead.
We had no more than 4 to 2 mentors, so it was 2 to 1. And I'll get into it, but no mentor was ever alone in a Zoom breakout with a student. It was always pairs of mentors, and they never had more than 5 students in their breakout. So it was really individualized instruction, and I think it made all the difference.
So this is just what we use to get students signed up the second year. We stuck with the 7-week model. We stuck with the Tuesday, Thursday. We knew that would be sustainable if we hired a program coordinator. And I think we probably had 75 students sign up, just on their own, really just sort of pushing it out to students with incompletes. And one thing that we did that was important the second year is we did like a quick intake meeting. We called it an orientation with the student and a family member. So we checked in for 15 minutes. We said, you're going to join the Zoom. This is your schedule. Like, we asked them actually, what we did was, I did a Zoom with the family member, the parent, and then we looked at the schedule. I placed them on the schedule that would work best for them. So we had like 9 to 11, 11 to 1, 1:30 to 3:30, 3:30, 5:30, 5:30, 7:30. So the student chose, again, asking them when's best for you. Chose the time, and then we had the parent member there, or the family member there to ask their support with making sure that the student showed up. Yeah, and we also did a supply pickup. So we had parents or family members drive through, get the materials, because we did have a lab for the biology class, but it was mostly just, pens, paper, things to just make them feel supported. We didn't have too many materials, a couple packets for the science classes. So, oh, and we had a quote. So that's a great quote. So this student, we saw him speak. This student,
Unicorn.
We didn't know him at all. Never met him because he had transferred to our high school, so we hadn't served him in the middle school. He showed up on our radar just because of those incompletes. We reached out to him the first summer, and he recovered Algebra 1A the first summer. And I don't know if you can read it, but he says, it's been helpful to me, and I would say it's definitely made me a better person in both school and life. And he did have to recover another class this summer, but he's on the wrestling team. He's part of our North to Western program. He went on an 8-day backpacking trip this last summer, got a scholarship to go on a backpacking trip. So just a really powerful example of how the right interventions can have such an enormous impact on a student's life and faces challenges. Like, he did not, for the entire first summer that we did the program, he only chatted because he lived in a very, very, he lived in a camper with his family, very, very small. We obviously never required kids to turn on their videos. The way we framed it was, look, this is Zoom, there's 3 levels of communication. You want to use all 3, your communication is going to be the best, right? If we use chat, video, and we talk, our communication is going to be great. You don't want your video, talk, and chat. That's going to make it easier. This kid only chatted. And when we finally had a celebration at the end, and students got to, his mentor saw his face and heard him speak, and he had an amazing sense of humor, and just, we were able to just meet him where he was at, and now, the kid had not, he's going to college. That's the plan, right, Miss? That's his response, right?
He's thriving for sure. This is our visual of the work. It's been a long road, a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of front loaded work to make it happen. And Heather impresses me the most when she's in this mode, because she's like, oh, easy, we'll just do this. Oh, barricade, we'll just go around. Like she's unstoppable. Yeah, she's unstoppable with this stuff, and it's really fabulous. Yeah, so the spring was really just the writing of the classes, and then Carla and Heather and I had a couple of Zooms to figure out how we were gonna do it. And then when the kids came, it was really mentor time, and Carla.
We spent a lot of the funds in the summer building the curriculum, paying Sam to build the curriculum, and then she assessed on Wednesdays and Fridays. So kids had Tuesday and Thursday sessions, and so she assessed on Wednesday and Friday, and so they could come to the next session and see if they had passed. So we had passed the unit or needed to fix anything. Yeah. And then this last year we did end up with a lot of unfinished classes, and so we extended through September. We kept Carla on. We offered a Wednesday evening session, and we just really tried to push. But what we know now, because we have the proficiency-based curriculum in science and math, where we look at our current grades, that's what our students are failing, which is,
separate talk.
So we know that they need this curriculum, and the next step is going to be, I think, implementing it into some extensions classes that we have that are basically support classes. So trying to figure out, okay, how can we provide the mentor support, because we know that it's not enough to just give the kid the online curriculum. So yeah, we need to find a way to use it to see if we can't get some of our incompletes taken care of before the summer. It remains to be seen whether or not we will offer a summer program, because it is 7 weeks and it does take a lot of energy. Yes.
Yeah, so you may be wondering like how it actually all worked. And just to clarify, there were 2 summers that we did this. The first one was really a pilot summer. That summer I worked as a mentor, so me and one other college student revisited algebra and had not seen or touched or looked at algebra for like 3 years, and all of a sudden I put myself in the position where I had to teach it to students who had previously failed it. And Sam wrote a great curriculum. It was really easy for me to relearn it and then teach it. And from that experience the previous summer, I was able to build on that the second summer and instruct the mentors on what they had to do. The first summer was 7 mentors, and the second summer was actually 10.
Okay.
And then I was like telling them what to do, but they did a great job. How it really worked was that I would facilitate the Zoom breakouts. Heather and Sam did all the front loading work. I just had to step in and like press play basically, because everything was all set up. Mentors did all the tutoring. I will show you our beautiful spreadsheet and explain how this was the like cornerstone of how it all ran logistically. But they did the tutoring. They were in breakouts, 2 mentors to 1 breakout, and no more than 4 to 5 students each. And then Sam was a teacher on record who on Wednesdays and Fridays would look over and grade the work that students had done with their mentors on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so our top 3 tools were the shared spreadsheet that I'm gonna like go through with you guys and look at right now. Zoom, of course, we love it, hate it, but it got us through the pandemic. And then Signalvine, which is a text messaging service that Heather has already set up with students in Europe, and that's how I was able to get them to show up when they would sleep in at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in July. And so
The spreadsheet?
yeah, I'm just gonna sit and drive around.
Do you offer any components of this during the school year?
That's what
Yes.
we're hoping for.
Yeah. Because we have a placeholder for it with these STEM extension or
Core
extensions
extensions
classes. It's essentially, I mean, it's a choir teacher. It's essentially a teacher,
Boom.
supervising a room of students who are maybe not doing homework. So yeah, which is I think the last thing students who are behind need is unstructured, more unstructured
Yes.
time to get caught up. But
How do I unsign?
because we have that placeholder, I think it really makes sense for us. We're gonna go for it for second semester. So it's really just that mentor piece. But also we have a really fabulous staff right now of, we have we have a couple site leads, a few instructional assistants, and then I'm able to timesheet for some instructional assistants who work for other departments, but who have known our students through our mentoring programs for a long time. So we start academic support in person tomorrow with 5 Gear Up staff, 4 of them who are near peer students of color, recent college graduates. So
One other hiccup is the work that I did to get kids placed correctly, right, on their proficiency model, in our proficiency model, and that's really time consuming, and I can't do that if we start doing this in core extension classes or otherwise. So we think we might develop like a pre-test that will just be a better, like a more efficient way to not have to task our awesome tech guy with so much report pulling, but we haven't done that yet. That's one of the many like small little details that we'll find out. Okay, go Carla, go.
So we had a large fluctuating number of students throughout the summer, working with their schedules, working with 10 college students who also have other part-time jobs scheduled in the summer, everyone's social activities in the summer, my own life, Heather, Sam, everyone. This was what got us through it all, was our spreadsheet. So as you can see, we had 2-hour sessions from 9 a.m. to 7:30 with a lunch break in between for the mentors. And what we did is that we had pairs of mentors, and as you can see here, they never have more than 5 students assigned to them at a single time. This was more towards the end of the summer, and so some places have gaps. There are a lot of different colors and like font boldness, and all of that was communicated within us, like what that all meant. The B's are bolded when they switch from Algebra 1A to Algebra 1B. That's how I let the mentors know and not forget. And the different colors were based on attendance, and then everything else was just color blocked so that you could see it all. And this was accessible to all of the mentors, and then was the only people who had access to edit it were Heather, Sam, and I, and also Lisa sometimes. Well, yes, you did have it. And this is where all of our curriculum and resources for the mentors also lived, because if you slide right on over here, you can see all of the things we were working with this summer. So these math quizzes that Sam keeps talking about, and you guys, I'm pretty sure, have access to, lived here. You would just click on this link that would take you to another page that then had another spreadsheet of tabs and links to those Google Forms. So it was all organized. When students were working on the science curriculum on Google Slides, there was also a workbook that they had to pick up at the beginning of summer, but we had some students join in the middle of the summer. We had some students go on vacation. We had some students who just never picked it up. And so we had PDFs of the science workbooks. These were also linked here. We have the Zoom link that stayed the same the entire summer. These work logs are how the mentors got paid, and sometimes they would forget to fill them out. And so they always lived right here. Our survey to gather data, we had linked to the Google Classroom codes that Sam set up. So not every mentor was working on every single subject. We had some that only did science that summer, some that only did math that summer. It didn't actually have anything to do with what they were majoring in. For example, this mentor, Brian, was a history major, and he was teaching biology, integrated science, algebra all summer. And he also shows up over here. And
real quickly, if you don't mind, just in reference to the Google Classrooms, another important reason to have homies in your tech department is that I set up school district emails for all the mentors, right? So that they had a professional way to communicate with teachers and students if they needed to, but also so that there were no glitches within our Google Suite. They could access anything that teachers and students could access.
And this spreadsheet made my job easy, because when a mentor would ask me, oh, where is, I would just be like, the spreadsheet is always on the side.
Because they're college students, they still they need guidance and support too, right?
Yeah. We could also leave notes to each other. For example, this student, for some reason, would finish a quiz and not hit submit. So we were tracking her progress this summer. She showed up every day, was there the whole time. participated, was active, and for some reason, we noticed there was nothing updated in the grade book 2 weeks in. And we're like, why is that? And we realized she wasn't clicking submit on the quiz. There was nothing for Sam to grade. This student over here needed support in Spanish. I have another note. This student needs individual support. So like you asked, how many students are to a mentor? There were these rooms of 3, 4, 5 students in one Zoom with 2 mentors. Sometimes they wouldn't talk. If they were not alone and getting individual support, they wouldn't interact. So when this student showed up, we knew that they needed to be DM'd through the Zoom chat. We needed to have somebody specifically looking out to make sure that they were on task on the Zoom. It's really easy for teenagers to just turn off all of the video, audio, and just kind of step away. And so we would leave notes to each other on what students needed right here. And this was only editable by me and Sam and Heather, so the mentors didn't have to move anything. And then when students would finish classes, we also had down here their next steps. And so we had students that had multiple incompletes, and we would put right here at the bottom what they needed to work on next. Some of these students show up in multiple different columns because they had multiple different incompletes. And this part was one of my bigger logistical things that I had to work on during the summer. Was as a student was approaching the end of the grade book, the end of the class that we're working on, I would have to update this. When they started working on this, I'd put it up there on the schedule, cross them off down here, and just keep it updated so that when mentors and students in the middle of the session finished the whole class, they could move on to the next one. And down here at the bottom, we have a lot more information. I would take attendance every day, not for punitive measure of like, oh, you're not showing up, like we're gonna fail you, but rather to flag student well-being, because when students didn't show up, there was usually something going on. And so here it looks a little sparse. There were sometimes they didn't show up, like this student missed a couple days, but there were other students who joined in the middle of summer, some students who finished. So I wrote myself notes that this student was on vacation for 2 days. This student would only show up at that session those 2 days. And this was just helpful when we saw things like this where a student didn't show up for 2 weeks, is because this student was working full-time in the summer to support their family. And they would only be able to come on the days that they had off, or I don't even know how they made it work, but they did. And they passed this summer. It took them 2 months, but
our students are getting better as juniors, just like making commitments and you know, learning how to tell their employer that they can't be scheduled during certain times when that's a possibility.
So,
and one other thing about this spreadsheet, super important, that Zoom link staying the same.
Yeah.
Or just directing the mentors to always go to the spreadsheet for the Zoom link was so important, because I'm sure y'all have been in a situation where you're like, the Zoom link goes sideways and you have to email it out or something. So if we needed to change it for whatever reason, we just changed it in the spreadsheet, and that made a huge difference. And Carla sent emails as well.
Yeah, I have examples of that. And then just some other tabs. These were like, did we have the student transfer?
Very quick question.
Yes.
From a technology standpoint,
Yes.
did y'all provide computers to these students, or
Yes.
one-to-one technology?
We went one-to-one right away in the pandemic.
As a necessity, every kid got a Chromebook.
And before, when I mentioned the supply pickup, I did, that was time for me to make sure students had Chromebooks, and also we did provide some hotspots. Yeah.
So we just have,
Throughout the course of it, were there any students that didn't complete?
Yes.
There were some of those.
Yeah.
and there were multiple reasons for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and these are just other tabs that we kept for ourselves. This is where Sam would put when students finished the class. As you can see, there were a lot, and if I this is the cursor to scroll down. We had a lot of students finish, and we're really proud of them.
And this actually, I copied and pasted and sent to the counselors at the end of August. Like, hey, this kid finished this whole suite of math this summer. They need to go into Algebra 2 now.
So our goal was, you may remember I said we had 21 credits recovered per summer. My goal was to double it, and we had 67 classes recovered. So that felt really good. Yeah.
Cool. Is this still in presentation mode? No.
Just exit and re-enter.
There we go. Okay. And then I have some examples. Oh, well, this is a daily routine of what we do if you wanted to try this out in wherever you work. So we would have a 15-minute morning check-in with mentors. So the session started at 9 a.m., but I would have mentors show up. We tried 8:30, but like it was summer. And after the first couple of weeks, once the mentors were able to get a handle of it, all we had to do was check in about individual students, what they were doing this week, and anything else they needed. I would be setting up breakout rooms. We had the breakout rooms by mentor pairs, and I did it for the entire day because there's nothing worse than trying to do something and set a breakout room up at the same time. It's awful. And I would pick a question of the day. Like Heather said, one of our main goals was also to make this experience enjoyable for students. Like it's not just do algebra in the summer. That sounds really terrible for them, but it was really fun. And one of those was question of the day. Like, for example, one day was, if you were a potato, how would you be cooked?
Another P word.
Yes, potato. As students would come in at 9 a.m., I would be taking attendance on my handy-dandy attendance sheet. Then I would have everybody break out. It was self-select breakouts. If you've never used Zoom, you can assign people to breakouts, which is really tedious. Or with tech-savvy students and college mentors, you can just do self-select Zoom breakouts. They also get to learn their mentors' names because you'd be surprised how many students can work with a human being and not remember their name when we're in an online setting. So they would just hit join for their mentor, and I always had 2 backups in case we just needed to move people around for any reason. After we went into breakouts, if students were like late that day, I would text them using Signalvine. Usually, as I was doing question of the day and taking attendance, I'm gonna just like multitask with different tabs. Having everything on one spreadsheet really helps, so I wouldn't have to have like 5 different tabs open. And then my job was to just monitor student progress and how mentors were doing as well. So I would do rounds in all these breakout rooms on the hour at minimum. I would usually go in more frequently and just go bother them and be like, hey, how's it going? If I knew certain students were not responsive in a group setting, I would individually DM them and be like, hey, how's it going? Sometimes I did that just to see how the mentors were doing, because mentors could say one thing, but student experience might have been different, and they usually always responded with what they needed, and the mentors were really great. And these were all the different pairs during the day, and then I would just support where needed. If they didn't actively need me helping them in a breakout, I would be doing all the schedule updating on the spreadsheet. I would be requesting grade books. I would be emailing Heather and Sam, checking in with families, and talking to students on this service called Signalvine if they didn't show up that day and it was because there was something going on. And then here is an example of the Signalvine communication. It's this cute little website. And
does anybody use Signalvine already?
Yeah.
It's
And
been
they have
so important for us.
and they have a try the new Signalvine, but we like the old version of it.
We're stuck in the
And
classic.
these are all texts that on students it shows up on their phone, but for us it shows up on our laptop. And it's nice because it's the communication that we have with students is visible by the whole team. So we're not having like our own conversation with students. It's, hey Heather, I talked to so-and-so today. Can you go on Signalvine and check like what they said? Because I think there's something going on. And then they can see exactly what the student said and we can all see it on one page and like stay on the same page with the students.
This is great. I will not be making my Zoom today, but I will be doing my lesson. It's like ideal.
Yeah, so we had students who had doctor's appointments. This student right here competed dogs for a 4-H club, and her dog decided to run through a fence. So one day she didn't show up, and she was really consistent student, so I texted her and asked if she was okay, and she's like, I had to take my dog to the ER. So life happens. And we could also send mass texts to students. So when it was like 9 a.m. or when it was like 9:05 and the 9 a.m. session had started, I would just hit quick message and I could text all the students who were running late and just be like, hey, where you at? And without having to individually go into the threads with students. And here's how you could respond. You would just click on the individual thing. And it was really, really helpful because they would get it to their phone.
And parents too. We have a student line and a parent line. So if we're not hearing from the students, we can
Text their parents.
Or a family member.
And then this was like my daily routine with students, but also on a weekly basis on Mondays because we had Tuesday, Thursday sessions. I would send them an email, and it was really short and really simple. The top 3 things that needed to be in it was the Zoom link, the same Zoom link the entire summer, what time they needed to show up at, because I don't know, they could forget in the middle of summer. Nice and big and bolded for them. And I also put these at the bottom. This is just like a screenshot, so it's still, but they're like clapping for them when they finish lesson. These were just mostly for me. So just
No, that was part of her job description. I told her, I said, you need to include a
funny gift at the bottom.
gift. Yeah.
And yeah, so they're really short because they're not going to read emails, they're students. And so all they needed really was the Zoom link and what time they needed to be there. It stayed the same the entire summer, but just to remind them it was big and bolded.
And I think this is another example of how like kids need supports. Like you can't just say like I signed them up, right? I signed them up, or I sent them the email. Like these are little things that we just got in a routine of doing, but made the students feel connected to the program, and I think they made a big difference.
Like this one is week 3, and I got the same email with a different gift at the bottom every week. And if a student didn't show up, sometimes they would be like, oh, I didn't get the email. They got the email. But then I would just text them through Signalvine and be like, oh, well, I just sent it to you again on email, or I could send it to them on their phone, because sometimes students join from their phone if their Chromebooks weren't working. And yeah, that was my job that summer.
Yeah, right?
It was really fun. And
So this video is the students talking about their experience with their mentors. You know, it's better coming from them than us, probably.
Sorry about the sound.
Yeah, outside, you can hear the bell ringing in choir.
And once my mentor tells about this, I want to know how to do math right away. And like there's no other mentor that would say it in a different way that I can decide to say it. Thank you.
I really like Hugo
Santiago.
And because he had a great personality, but he was also constantly pushing me and motivating me to keep doing my best in school. I learned that from Hugo that you could be a successful person,
not from Google.
but also be really cool, really just fun to be around, but also you could be serious and successful.
My favorite mentor was a Western student, but I don't remember her name. And I really liked her because she was really helpful and explained it better than some of my teachers do.
Easier for me to like skip parts if I already knew them.
Really nice, and they help me understand the concepts I can comprehend.
My favorite mentor is Gabby because she's very nice, outgoing, and she can also match your vibe. I really like that about her because
She said match your vibe.
I don't know how to express myself sometimes. I'm glad I picked the right person because she actually motivated me to finish my work instead of like feeling stressed out. And I just like to say thank you to her for helping me feel better about it. And
I wish I could, to hear a college student mentor say to a student, like, did you get it? Do you need me to explain it again? Oh, no problem, I can explain it again. I can explain it as many times as you want. That is just so, like, that's not the experience they're having in a lot of classrooms, just because, public education is what it is. So that I think is so important. Way more important than like being an expert in algebra.
Yeah.
Like the patience, the love, the kindness, you're not unintelligent, you're not dumb, you're not slow. A lot of our students have had so many negative experiences, right, in schooling that those positive ones just so far.
We had students who were taught by an art major, an international student from Vietnam, a history major, people who, like, the college students who said, yeah, this was terrible for me in high school, and they would teach alongside them. And sometimes they get stuck, and it was really funny. We'd all be like, how do we do this one? And then just together, the student knew part of it, the mentor knew part of it, and together they would do it, figure it out. And I think just that low stakes of like, they don't have to be embarrassed in front of this person because they're not a math teacher at the front of the classroom, just really help them be able to say, no, actually I didn't get that at all.
I love that, like props, right? That's such a huge skill for students to just say, I didn't get it. I don't know why I'm not, I heard a kid once say, I don't know why I'm not getting it, I'm just not getting it. Okay, that's fine, we'll just take more time.
Okay, data. This is my jam. This is where I thrive, right? So 65 math and science credits earned, that's like triple the first year. And we were really thrilled. Like Heather had said, her goal was, we just want to double it. We want to double it. We tripled it. Super, super awesome. 271% increase. 57 students that engaged, but not all of the kids who enrolled finished classes. Yeah. Did you want to talk about this part, Heather?
Oh, I mean, we did a pretty good job the first year, so we didn't change what did need to be changed. We started a little bit earlier. We streamlined the communication with the counselors, as I mentioned, that spreadsheet. We put more tabs. I mean, it really was so important to have it all in one place. And then we were so smart in hiring Carla, someone who had already done the program. She didn't need to really be trained at all. I don't think we just met and supported, right?
Yes.
What did course completion look like? Was it seat time, some sort of competency? Was there an end of course exam that you normally use in the regular semester? It was used in the summer?
Nope. So the proficiency curriculum is, once you demonstrate mastery of the standard, you move to the next standard until all the standards are met, done. So as soon as they met all of the standards that were required for that course, I put it on the spreadsheet. Hey, Heather's done with Algebra 1A, Carla, move her to B, right? And so there weren't assessments in the formal sense.
So that work of pulling the gradebook, Sam really looked at like 14 different teachers' math and science gradebooks and determined by the gradebooks which assignments or exams were which standard. Which I'm really glad that she did that and I did not.
How did you make a decision so that they met that standard?
Well, because
was it an assessment? Was it?
Yep. So the math and science teachers, I taught in both of those departments, and so the math department sets up their learning standards quizzes by learning standard. So I could just look on the grade book for their scores on these quizzes, and based on those scores, determined if they were proficient. And our state law standard is 80%. So if they pass learning standard 7 at 87%, you don't have to do that in our summer class. And science was the same way. The units were really, not the same way actually, different. The units were set to meet a host of standards that I knew because I had what are those called? The syllabi from each teacher. And then could say, oh, this unit covers these 6 state standards through the next generation science standards. And then I would use their projects and their test grades to decide which standards they needed to complete. So.
And we tried English, and it was too difficult at that first summer. And I think that for credit recovery for social studies and English, we're gonna maybe pursue like a project-based learning model, but maybe see how we could make a project work in this framework.
So that the QR code is in your packet. Heather, I think I can pull it up really.
I just really love the gradebook.
The gradebook is useful.
Are we taking any of your time?
11.
5 more minutes? Okay. Yeah, I really love this gradebook. And you know what I did? I went to see Chris Shimke, the Skyward guy, and I pulled up the gradebook. And I showed him the gradebook because the tech department's so removed, right, from they do all that work behind the scenes. And it was important, I think, to show him, like, look, all the help you provided us this summer, you actually helped all these students. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, you can try this QR code or we'll see here if we can
pull it up. The gradebook also really helped the college mentors who had access to it view only. Sam was the only one who could edit it because she was the credentialed teacher of record. and it helped because it was almost set up like video games, like the visual of it was like the bar would get more green as students progressed and almost completed. So you can see here.
Sorry, that's the wrong one. It has their last names.
Oh.
Okay, here's the one we want. So sorry. Thank you for being patient. So this grade book shows, these are the 8 classes that I wrote curriculum for. And you can tell, right? So if the pink means that they had completed it during the school year, so the mentors knew, hey, we're going to skip lesson 2 with Kaylin here. Or we're going to skip, and she ended up only having to do half the class, right? And and I kept dates on things, and this was for me to help with Carla, like, hey, good old Logan did 2 things, and then it was like a week before he showed up again, and then he did 5 lessons in the following week.
Will you scroll down just so that we can see the quantity? Yes. I mean, that's just.
This is just geometry
so much
B.
work.
What? Algebra 1A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was another class where a lot of students did things, and I just kept this updated for students throughout this. This is the other thing that would happen. This was my cue. So the mentors could see the grade book. Everyone could see it, but only I could write in it, So Lucia here got to lesson 5, and this means that she got a 6 out of 10 on that quiz. She couldn't move on, right? You have to get 8 out of 10 to pass. So this was my marker to the mentors. Hey, circle back to lesson 5 with Lucia so she can move on.
And she's one of the very few students who we've allowed to continue working with support. We really tried to close it off because otherwise.
B maybe? Was it?
What?
B. I can't remember which one was the one that was just filled with green. I don't remember. Was it?
I thought it was geometry.
Geometry B.
Yeah.
They did so well.
So
the impact of a student not having to repeat geometry, right? Not having to repeat algebra.
And you can see here that many of them knew quite a bit of the curriculum. This student needed 1 lesson to be actually finished. But because she stopped attending at the end, May of 2020, 2021, and she missed a month of school, she never demonstrated mastery in that geometry standard, and the geometry teacher gave her an incomplete.
So we had students like that in a group, but then we also had students like this who needed every single lesson because they were just unable for one reason or another to get it done during the school
And
year.
we didn't worry too much about putting students together at the exact, we did our best, but honestly, I think our minds would have exploded if we had tried to match them up to that extent. So students worked independently, mentors would get them started. There was a lot of independent work, a lot of mentors just saying, how's it going? Do you need any help? Sometimes they just need help showing up, right?
We'll just go quickly through the next few slides. I do want you to see this last video.
And we'll hang back. I know we're not leaving time for questions, so we'll hang back for questions.
Thank you so much. So this year, things are better.
I wouldn't be able to take other classes. I would do the same class this year, but since I did it in summer, I get to do algebra 2 this year, so.
Get to do algebra 2. Get to.
Yes, you did. I feel good that I don't have to go to algebra 1 and 2 to get actually get that finished. Go to something more harder.
School year's going good.
That's the
through
bell.
The credit recovery program, I learned how to manage my time better and how to prioritize my commitments better.
It's helped me a lot, so I'm able to experience my grade that I'm supposed to be in, so I'm not far behind.
The school year is good so far, and the year of because if I didn't do it, I would have still been in algebra 1 instead of algebra 2.
This year is going really well. I have more A's than expected, and yes, I did a lot. It benefited two of my classes, and now I have to retake classes on biology and algebra 2, which I wanted to and how I plan to do.
Yeah.
So last night we pulled, Chris helped us out again, like I said, we pulled the grades, current grade books and core classes for the 65 students, and just what we saw was 15% of them are passing everything, which we want that to be higher, but it's still pretty good. That's a third, right? So,
Not 15%, 33%, 15 of the 45.
oh, right, thank you, 33%, 15 of the 45, right. And then, what was the average GPA, or did you put it in?
I didn't, no, but their average GPA is like 2.9 as a group, and that's with only 15 of them passing everything. So they're much more engaged overall than in the last year, and that's not all us, right? That's a combination of being on campus, but these students tend to be the ones who fall through the cracks more often, so we're really proud of that. Yeah. We've talked about this a little, and we're kind of gonna hustle now because we don't want to ruin your lunch, but we do have to figure out what to do with this 8-class curriculum that we have built that we know works for kids. How do we do it in a different capacity without the 2-to-1 ratio with mentors? How do we do it without Chris pulling all the data and me doing all of that legwork? Because I have 5 preps. I teach 5 different classes this year. So I don't have the capacity for that in this setting anymore. I did in the summer. So what's next? That's our current.
I have an idea. Let's sell it. We're at Gear Up West. We can just sell it.
Whatever. Okay. Yeah, I think we have just one more, a couple of survey questions for you. Let's go back.
And that last slide is just sort of like, a graphic for, the idea was like, where are you? If you want to turn to that or not the last slide, the last page of your packet kind of summarizes all the things that we had to go through, and maybe you can flag, where do you want to put your energy if you want to work towards something like this? Do you already have that strong relationship with your tech department, or do you need to build it or whatever? So
this can also say /state, and we're interested in some of that survey part, like what are the holdups? Also, what questions do you have? What else do you want to know?
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Well, if you're one of the people who said, "Oh, it's happening," please make sure to take our contact information and keep us on deck for support. Because, we love all kids, especially our kids, but we love your kids too.
Yeah. Any way we can help with any of them. You need Carla is really the thing. That's our take home.
We're going to clone Carla and sell the proficiency-based curriculum.
Well, she's
You're
virtual.
West.
Oh, yeah.
You're virtual.
I'm virtual, yeah.
I think that's it. Does anybody want to fire any questions out, or do we just want to wrap up and go have lunch and we'll just hang back? Cool.